Welcome back to At Home, the podcast. How you like that, guys? I skipped the hello, hello, hello. Now I'm referring to it. So I technically got in there. You know, This spring, it's time to mix it up just a little bit. Good to see you all. Sitting around the table is the usual cast today. Brant Nine, Dustin Evie, Angie Brenneman. Hello, friends.
Is it spring?
I don't know, but it's like 60 degrees in this podcast studio, so it does not feel like it.
I know. I'm wearing sandals for like the second week in a row, even though it's cold out.
Trees are starting to bud.
Yep, it's ready. The evenings are getting longer. You know, all those good things. It's March, right, Dustin?
That's right. Already grilled once. Chris, grilled?
More than once.
Yep.
Yeah. I saw Brant Nine broke out the grill the other day. It is a grill, right? I mean, that is what you call it? Okay, I just wasn't sure.
It is. It's the grill. The only one here that uses charcoal. So,
Sorry, I don't have anything to say. Grill is important.
It's not my fault that you guys don't get the lines on your steaks and on your burgers. You just sear it all the way around.
Hey, I have that. I have a Weber. I'm just saying. It just doesn't mean that I use the charcoal.
No, okay.
So, fast. Right. Yeah, all winter long. So, Dustin, March, what does that mean that, here on staff?
So today I failed us because I didn't bring any trivia, but...
Thanks for joining us today.
Yep, that's all we got. But March Madness is upon us, and we are now down to the Sweet 16. And for the last couple of years, we have done a little staff with some other random people that I've included. A challenge, the tournament bracket app thing that you can get on and do. And out of 30-some odd people, Mr. Denny Yoder himself is leading the pack. So that is what surprises me the most over the weekend.
Man.
I know.
Beating all of us, so I don't know what that says.
But he said he was his bracket was blown because he picked Wisconsin, and they've already lost. So how is he leading?
This is the problem. People that don't understand the bracket usually win the bracket, and that frustrates me.
I try to dumb down my picks this year, hoping that the reverse psychology would work. And where am I at in this thing?
I need to pull the rankings back up, but I know that Denny was 1. Angie, you are currently 24th.
Oh.
Yeah.
Ouch.
By the way, I did a little AI, so that doesn't work either.
Okay. Brant is in 18th place. Woo. And Chris, I'm not currently seeing
I was up in like 12 or 10 or something like that for a while.
Yeah. Oh, there's a few tied for 12th, which is where I see you're at as well. So yeah.
So basically, where are you, Dustin?
12th. Yeah, there's a bunch.
So we're tied for winning.
Yeah,
you
really. I would say.
Wow,
out of the four
what a
of
good
us.
podcast.
Yep.
Yes. Well, thank you, Dustin, for doing that and being just, kind of a galvanizer, bringing us all together to do this whole March Madness thing.
That's right.
So, okay, Chris, we are in the middle of a re-engage series. And so we had a podcast a couple weeks ago on this whole part 1 of re-engage. And we're kind of in the middle of 7 weeks, and we've covered sacrifice. And then this last week, we had a awesome time together talking about faith, sitting in Hebrews chapters, verses both 11 and 12, but really kind of more at the beginning of 12. Talk to us a little bit about that.
I love chapter 11 because it's this hall of faith, right? And it's listing out all these people and the amazing things that God did through them and their faithfulness to God, even in the midst of all of the junk that they dealt with. And I just love how it goes on. It lists name after name, and it talks about them. And I like how it gets about halfway through that chapter, and it's like, what more do you want me to say? I mean, and he goes, I haven't even talked about David, and I haven't even talked about, all these other people and characters. It's the hall of faith. That would be one thing to just let it die there and then end the chapter. That was great. Look at all these people and all the great things they did. But he starts chapter 12 with the transition word, therefore. Therefore, because of those things and because of all the things I just talked about, basically my summary statement would be, now he says, all right, so the ball's in your court. The baton has been handed to you. So now, run. Your leg of the race. Go for it.
Yeah. And he's saying that it's kind of a pass to the next generation. It's
Totally.
a call to the next generation.
Yeah, and I think with that comes some challenges, comes some problems, because we get to the point where we have the baton in our hand and we go, I don't really want to run right now. I don't feel equipped to run. I don't have the right. I didn't even come to the track meet dressed appropriately to run. Right? I mean, can you imagine that? But that's how I think in a lot of ways, a lot of the American church starts to look like today. We're not prepared for the leg of our race. We're not ready to run. We're not, if we can be truly transparent, are we even interested in running? I don't know that we are, if we're honest. I think if you took it, obviously that's a sweeping generalization, but I think for the most part, people are like, I'm pretty content having a little bit of track, having a little bit of other things in my life. But running this race of faith is not necessarily a priority.
So I'm going to go ahead and read these 3 verses that you went over, and then we're going to talk about some key points that you brought out on Sunday, which I think you can hear echo in these scripture reference. This is Hebrews 12, 1 through 3. Therefore, like you said, since we are surrounded by such a huge crowd of witnesses to the life of faith, let us strip off every weight that slows us down, especially the sin that so easily trips us up. And let us run with endurance the race God has set before us. We do this by keeping our eyes on Jesus, the champion who initiates and perfects our faith. Because of the joy awaiting him, he endured the cross, disregarding its shame. Now he is seated in the place of honor beside God's throne. It's pretty strong how-tos.
Definitely. Yeah, I mean, he starts right off the bat there. Get rid of the things that are tripping you up. Get rid of the things that are hindering you. Well, I love the analogy because it's a beautiful analogy of running a race. You wouldn't show up with a parka on and expect to beat Usain Bolt. I wouldn't show up and expect to beat him anyway. But you wouldn't show up with everything that hinders you to run this race.
I think you talked about on Sunday having a parachute attached to you, which is actually something that track runners use like to train.
Build resistance.
They want to build that resistance, and they run as fast as they can with that parachute on, and it holds them back a lot. But yeah, then you take it off and you can run so much stronger and so much further and so much faster. And this is what the writer of Hebrews is telling us to do. Throw that off. You're going to be able to go further. You're going to be able to go faster. You're going to be able to go with a lot more strength and purpose.
Yeah. So let's talk about this. What hinders us in today in not only the church, I think, and society as a whole, from what do we need to throw off? What are some things that are hindering us from running this race?
Maybe the easier question is what doesn't hinder us. Because
I thought about that too.
there's a lot. I mean,
Yeah.
again, I think we could all probably say something different just depending on the season of life that we're in. And busyness is such a hindrance. And I know it's the thing that we've talked about many times on the podcast before, but just busyness, schedules, calendars, the things that we put on our own plate can become a hindrance. And a hindrance doesn't always have to mean that it is a bad thing, but I mean, they can still be a hindrance. And so I think that's the struggle is how do you balance that well? I mean, how do you make sure that what you're doing is important? How do you keep the main thing? And so I'm trying to do better at that. But then there are also like the sin issues that I think sometimes become they're almost numbed in our lives because those are the things that we've just carried for so long, and so we've become numb to them. And so, but they are hindrances that we need to get rid of, but we haven't. And so those are the things that come to mind for me anyway.
I love what you said. There's 2 things, those words I heard were not everything that hinders us is bad, but then also the key is that sin hinders us. And sometimes we put all this in like one basket. And I think we have to really filter our thought process in that. And it can be 99% good, but that 1% can hinder us. And that's a huge concept I think we don't really sit on, that sometimes the good things are holding us back.
Yeah. Can the good things be your kids? I had this conversation with God this morning. Like, how am I supposed to find more time for you? Like, if I'm being completely transparent right now, our boys are waking us up at 3, 4 in the morning. The early hours aren't available, right? The evenings are, we get them to sleep and we're like, we're tired. Let's go to bed right now. That's kind of a season we're in. And then God reminds me of the distractions in my life, the social media, the times where I do have a moment and I sit down and I decide to numb or just fully just engage in something that's not purposeful. And he just reminds me, this is a sin issue that you have. You blame the good things in your life, but you're also being distracted by a lot of bad things and a lot of things that aren't good for you. So.
I have to say, when you lay it out with the understanding that, you know, you are leading the next generation in your home, like you have kids, this is your responsibility. God has entrusted them with you. And one of my thought process is, and one of the verses that came up into my mind, even as I thought through that same question, I was thinking about that. I was like, what happens when our good things are things we can't control or things that come into our lives that we don't have any impact or the circumstance we can't change? How does that look? How do we throw off? And I think it actually ties to our second point, Chris, because I think this is the point that we have to look at, that our race doesn't always look the same as your race. And so when you say that, it's a season, just like Dustin said. I think my race right now is different than your race. You know, I have kids that I'm trying to navigate, but I can't compare. I have to stay in my lane. And as a mom to athletes, we talk about this all the time. You look and you compare, you see what somebody else is doing, and what does that do? It just like totally hinders you. It actually hinders your progress. Because of the comparison trap.
Even what Brant just said is different than what you and I are facing, right?
Yeah.
So it would be easy for me to say to Brant, well, it's
it
not
together.
that hard. Just get it together, right? But
We love you,
I'm an
Brant.
empty nester, and
Yeah.
you're almost
Right, but I'm
right?
saying it's all individualized. It's
uniquely
so
yours.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just had a conversation with a pastor today over coffee, trying to encourage, and the thought process is, you know, it's one thing for me to offer you advice, but Wakarusa is very much different than your church, and so you have to figure out, what does that look like for your place. You can't just plug and play necessarily what we're doing in this situation, because context is different, and our races are our races. And I'm glad for that. I think we need that diversity, or else everything would be the same. And your strengths that you guys have sitting around this table, some of them are very much my weaknesses. We need that to make each other better. And my one strength maybe help you. You know, I think that's this uniquely us.
Yeah, so I think that even though sometimes we feel like something's hindering us, sometimes it's just a perspective change.
But Angie, you put on these show notes something I think is really important. It's this comparison idea. So we sometimes look and say, I just wish my life looked like, or I wish my faith looked like, or I wish my journey looked like, and I wish, you know, somebody else. Instead of saying, you know what, you are uniquely you. Stop comparing yourself to others. Be the best version of you in your circumstances that God intended us to be.
You love swimming, Angie. Do you remember this image of Michael Phelps?
Do you actually love swimming, or do you love the competition of swimming? Because I think we covered this before.
No, I don't swim.
You're a tennis gal.
I swim. I am a sunbather before I'm a swimmer. Okay, so
Sorry to interrupt.
listener,
Sport of swimming.
There we go.
I love the idea of
Staying afloat.
Me too.
you asked the
The
question.
idea of swimming.
Sorry to interrupt.
So you love the sport of swimming. Your daughters are very good at it. Do you remember the Michael Phelps image of, I used to show it to my students when I was a teacher all the time, of not that one, of him actually in the pool, and I think it was the freestyle, and his eyes are set on the goal. And the guy who was supposed to beat him, his eyes are focused on Michael Phelps. And the comment that it says is something along the lines of, winners focus on the goal, losers focus on the winners.
It's 100% true, Brant.
And
It's
that's
100%.
that's the comparison game, I think, not just in sports, but in life too, we can get ourselves into.
Well, and I think, and I mean this, is that when we talk about something that hinders us, when we step one direction towards that comparison trap, it kind of is like like a black hole. Because it just starts there, and then sometimes you get complacent. Well, it's not going to be like, why do I even try, or what do I want to do? Or you really get you look and you're dissatisfied with everything in your life. Well, hold on, that's not a place to go. Gratefulness of heart changes everything. And so I think sometimes this one little look, this one little change of perspective makes all the difference, because the scripture even says it, right, Chris? Right after it says, one, take off what hinders. It's your race. What is the third thing that it says?
The third thing is remain focused.
Focus.
Right?
Yeah. Like you're supposed to be focused. And I think it all ties together. Like it's a beautiful picture of discipleship towards Jesus.
Yeah. The thing that I think hinders us sometimes also goes along with this, and that is status. We trying to live according to somebody else's status. I wish I had their status, or I want to look like I fit in. Instead of asking the question, by fixing our eyes on Jesus, what does he desire our status to look like? And standard is probably a better word. What would he say we should be searching to be like? But we say, my peer group, I just wish I could be more like them. And sometimes we dabble in their bad habits, or we dabble in their things that they say are important. And at the end of the day, we stop asking the question, what does Jesus say is important, and live by those standards.
Right.
I like that it says, so there's a race that is marked out for every one of us, but we all have the common piece of that is to run with perseverance or with endurance. So I think there is this understanding that this isn't a short race. This isn't a thing that we come and do very quickly. This is a thing that takes endurance. It takes perseverance, and that is built usually over time, over trial, over struggle. And so it is, that language I think is important when we're talking about this race that we're in, and understanding that that endurance is something that you don't just have, that it's developed. The longer you run, the more you whatever. I mean, if we're using the running analogy, the longer you run, the more that is built in, and the more that helps. So as we think about, yes, we all have our own race that we are running, but it does require this endurance, this perseverance that we will need.
So one of the things I really liked about Sunday, and I want to tie the listener into this, is we had some testimonies of some generation before us, I guess you would say, because they pretty much went before you and I, Chris. So they're sitting, I think they both Jim and Walt said they're in the 80s. Am I right? They're both there.
Right.
So they're in the generation, they're in that one ahead of us. And I loved when you asked them, what would be one thing that you could tell families today that they could do to run this race well?
Yeah. Walt gave the answer, keep the main thing the main thing. Yeah, I like that.
Yeah. And I say that because I think we can get to that point in our life and we lose what the main thing, like what you're saying, Brant, like you're in this like really hard time with your kids and you're like, oh, wait, I just want to sleep. The main thing is discipling your kids and helping your kids walk through hard times, or walking together in marriage and not losing your temper and finding, positive things in hard situations. It looks totally different for Chris and I when, we're looking at our spouse going, what are we doing?
What do you want to eat?
And so I say this is that in all of those seasons, the main thing is still Jesus. It's still the cross. It's still what he did for us to give us that thing that we're aiming for. We just got to put on the right focus. We get distracted. We get, looking at somebody else's race, but it still has to stay on that main point, Christ. Dustin, what do you think?
I mean, that has been a phrase that's used a lot, and it's easy just to read that or see that and just be like, yeah, I mean, I get it. Of course, keep the main thing the main thing. It's in the middle of our race. It's when we are the most tired, the most stressed, the most overwhelmed, the most tempted. How do we continue to keep our focus? Or as you described, that picture of keeping our eyes focused on the goal, not look over to the side or what somebody else is doing. And I think that's built in, right, with discipline and with accountability and with having other people in our lives that can continuously encourage us, having mentors, having people that can be pouring into us, because we're never fully there, right? I mean, spiritually, we're always growing, we're always learning, and we should always be, as much as we're pouring out into others, we need to have others continually pouring into us.
That is an amen. And I say this because since we're making the athlete reference, a couple of my books, it was Olympic year, so I read a couple of the books out there. I read Katie Ledecky's Just Add Water, and I read Sidney McLaughlin's, Beyond the Gold. And I say both of those things.
I can't even refute that. That's the name of it.
Yeah. But both of those things, in both of those books, they didn't do their journey alone. There were some key people that walked alongside them and walked with them in hard times, but also encouraged them when they didn't want to show up. I mean, Sydney's book, if you're a reader, I highly recommend it. It's a great journey for young female athletes to read, but also just anyone, because it's a lonely journey for her, but she found those people, like you're saying, Dustin, that kept her accountable, that kept going for that goal. And I think sometimes we don't take that into consideration sometimes, that we need those people. That's what we're about here, that you're not doing this journey with Jesus alone.
I love, since we're on the athlete side of things, and I see this so much in the Olympics, especially with the swimming side of things, where the younger athletes definitely are working alongside of some of the older ones. Even if the younger ones are better than them, there's that mentorship that you can just clearly see. But it goes along with something else you have written here. Our race is not just for us. We're setting the foundation for those who come behind us. I love the Olympic model of this, especially from the swimming side of things, where, and the gymnastics side of things, where you can tell like there's this older generation of athletes who is just pouring into the younger generation behind them, and they know that this might be their last games, and so they're doing everything they can to pour into that younger generation. I think that's just a beautiful picture of what this is talking about.
Right. And I think what you're saying too is not just pouring in on the athletic side. That's the side of everything in life. Like there's got to be somebody in your everyday world that you can pour into. And I think we kind of go along and like, I can't make an impact.
So here's the problem, as I see it. We wait. Sorry, I have an opinion. We wait until we are too old to decide, all right, now I'm going to start investing in people. And a lot of times, unfortunately, we've waited so long, we've lost our voice to speak into it because the next generation below us is already looking for something else. We wait in the church setting until we're in the 70s. If I just get to the 70s, then I'll have more free time. I'll be retired and I'll be able to do this, and then I'm going to invest in that younger generation. The younger generation's already moved on to people, and so now is the time. We build and mentor as we go on this journey. If we wait till we arrive, it's too late.
So we went to this great seminar last week, 3 of us around this table. What was the key point at the end that we are to do as individuals into the next generation? It is what? Reverse mentoring. And the whole idea is that you're feeding the next generation your skill set, but they're feeding you their skill set because they have things that we can't quite. I'm going to be honest. There's things I have no idea what to do. And I have to ask my kid, I'm like, what do you think about this? Like, tell me about AI. Like, literally, Grace had a whole class on AI. And I'm like, I need to know more about it. Like, tell me about it because I don't know. So I'm coming to her. And I think all of us have those things that people below us and people that we can invest. It's not just us feeding that next generation. It's actually them giving back to us and enriching our lives too. And it becomes a beautiful picture.
Yeah. Tim Elmore, he kind of built that, what Angie just explained. And in that influence, you're right, like they have something to offer too, which is why he said history doesn't repeat itself. I love this phrase. History doesn't repeat itself, but it does rhyme. The reason it rhymes is because the older generation is putting back into this younger generation, but this younger generation comes with something as well that's different. And so it's not going to be exactly the same as you did it, but it will have rhythms to it and rhymes to it that you brought.
Yeah. Nothing's new under the sun. It just looks a little different.
Yeah.
And I loved how he said that. So number one, we have to throw out what hinders us. Get rid of those things that hinder us. Number two, we need to focus and say our race is uniquely ours. If we can hold on to that idea, it sure helps in the letting go of what hinders us when we look at our own race. We stay focused on Jesus. We build this foundation for the next generation. And then there's this part, and I say this because I didn't read this verse yet, which is verse 3. Think of, this is about Jesus. Think of all the hostility he endured from sinful people. Then you won't want to become weary and give up. We stay the course. We run the race till the end. We know that our finish line doesn't exist here. It exists in heaven. And I think sometimes we want to give up before we even get there. Say, I'm out. Peace out. This isn't worth it for me. I'm just going to go and kind of, hole up and do my own thing.
And it goes back to what we were talking about with the accountability piece and having others involved in your life and encouraging you in your journey. Because it's really easy if, let's just say, you go out on a run by yourself. It's really easy to quit if you're by yourself, because who would know? It's like, I'm going to stop running. But if you have somebody else with you, I mean, they're gonna help encourage you and keep you going. I mean, you can maybe slow down, but like if you have them, they're at least keeping you going, keeping you running. And so I just think that there's such an important part of doing life with other people with the same goals and same purpose.
Mm-hmm.
As I was getting ready to preach on Sunday, an image popped into my head, and it was this idea of that relay race. And if you were running the final leg of a race, you would be very, very grateful for the people who ran it very well, the first 3 legs of the race, because they would give you a lead and you would take some of the pressure off, and you'd be able to hopefully extend that lead even further, versus the image of the first 3 legs didn't go so well. Now I'm really far behind, and for me to catch up is going to be exhausting. I have to work hard or overwork beyond what's necessarily just hope to win. My image that popped into my head was, we got to run our leg of the race so well that the next generation gets the baton and the lead and says, you're ahead of culture. You're ahead of where it is right now. Be better, because be stronger, have more confidence, have more strength in character and faith in who you are, so that you run your race so well you pass on the baton. Now I'm a grandparent to my grandkids, so that their race doesn't have to bear some of the burden that your race did. They'll have their own burdens, but let them get to their own burdens and not have to work through my set of circumstances. And I think too many times we wind up in counseling trying to work through our pasts instead of just having a healthy past. How many, think about all the counseling. Angie, we do quite a bit of counseling. Think about all the counseling that we do. And how many times are you trying to do with family of origin issues? What if we ran our lives and our races so well that this next generation didn't have to worry about all those family of origin issues? They just were able to start running when they get their race, and so that image pops into my head. Run our legs so well that the next generation doesn't have to look backwards. They can just look ahead.
I 100% agree. And I want to encourage those that are listening, because some of them may say, well, I haven't done so good. But we talk about this Engage series, but there's a part that I love about the Christian faith, and I love about who Jesus is that we have the opportunity to re-engage. And there is never a time that he doesn't give us a second chance to come chasing after him and get in the race. Mm-hmm. And so maybe you say, hey, I'm engaged, I'm going for it. But maybe you're another person who's listening that says, no, I need to re-engage. I need to grab that baton. I'm going to get back up. I'm going to run my leg, and I'm doing it the best I can. And Jesus will honor that. God will honor that in your life. So we encourage you in that.
Would you cover those last 3 questions that you have there as we wrap it up?
Yes. So these are the questions that I have listed here at the bottom of our notes, and maybe one of us can answer one. Maybe as a listener, you may know some of these. What are you carrying that needs to be stripped away? What is something that you're carrying that needs to be stripped away? Are you running your race, or are you distracted by somebody else's race? And where's your focus? Is Jesus at the center?
Honestly, those 3 questions are a lifetime journey that we could post somewhere and continue to keep ourselves accountable. So in much, the best way I could wrap it up is, so there you have it. That's kind of what Hebrews is challenging us to in stripping off those things, running our race with focus, and keeping our eyes on Jesus. So, listener, hopefully you're encouraged by the things you're hearing. Hopefully, you're challenged by the things you're hearing, and we are here for you. We continue to be here for you. If you ever want to talk to somebody as you hear these things, you begin to process these things, I just tell you right now, Dustin Eby is available, and his phone number is. No, but honestly, we are here. We're here to help, and we'd love to walk on this journey together with you. So if we can be any help to you, let us know. Until next time, we wish you all the grace and peace the Lord has in store for you.